Okay, this evening's special meeting is one agenda item, and that's to discuss and take a vote on the possible modifications and options regarding the school construction project. The building committee has been briefed on it. We did have public comment at the building committee meeting regarding the project, and following the process, the school committee will now be briefed. And you have any questions or concerns, you certainly can ask them after the presentation. And after the presentation and your questions are answered, there'll be a vote taken. I'll turn this over to Chris for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Plata. Chris Spiegel here with Left Field Project Management on behalf of the North Providence School Building Committee. The agenda for you today is we're going to revisit the program priorities. We will discuss the program options, the preferred option as advanced by the School Building Committee. We'll open up for an open discussion with the members of this committee, and we have prepared a recommended motion. Sorry. This isn't my computer, so apologies here. I'm having trouble switching to the next slide. Here we go. So when we first started this project, when Left Field was first brought on board back in February, we reestablished the priorities that the School Building Committee had developed along with the school committee and town leadership, and what were the main priorities for these programs. And those were to create 21st century learning environments for all students in North Providence, that we would design all facilities to be equitable across the district so that each elementary school student in North Providence has access to the same facility, to maximize rides reimbursement of the project to make sure that we mitigate taxpayer burden, and that we were to ensure the projects are delivered on time and on budget. So those were the priorities that we went into this project with. And those were the priorities that we also revisited when we were faced with budget constraints due to the recent rise in cost of construction. So option one, when we got our new budget numbers in, was to increase the program funding. So the total cost, you'll see up there on the top right in the red box, the total cost of this program as designed for 3 individual elementary schools on 3 sites would be $149 million, with a cost per square foot of approximately $950 per square foot. And that would leave zero money in the health and safety contingency, as we're calling it, which is to address health and safety projects at the middle school and the high school, at the middle schools and the high school. So for option one, if we were to increase program funding, the advantages of that option would be equitable schools with only McGuire, that the current designs would remain in place with minimal changes. There would be no sacrifices of programmatic spaces to align with North Providence's budget. There would also be no sacrifice of community extracurricular spaces to align with budget, and there would be no schedule delay. Obviously, the disadvantages of a program such as this would be a budget deficit of approximately $24 million. At this time, we have not identified a funding source where we would be able to make up that budget shortfall. It could come from surplus funding or alternative financing. That being said, going out to bond is not something that we would recommend, because it could put this project's bonus points at jeopardy. As you know by the bond language, this project is currently slated for a minimum of 79% reimbursement from the state. If we were to rebond and redo the project, we would be putting approximately 35% of that at risk. And as I said, alternative funding may require a separate voter referendum. So that's option one, which was the current program of 3 small schools on 3 elementary sites. In order to build that program, the total budget for all of the projects would need to be $149 million, with a budget deficit of approximately $24 million. Option two would be a program reduction. Again, the total cost would still be about $149 million as it is right now. We believe that we could get that down. However, we do not believe we would ever be able to really get that down to $125 million without significant programmatic cuts. So the cost per square foot would remain high at $950 a square foot, and you would no longer have any availability of any of the projects at the middle schools or at the high school. So option two, the advantages would be that 3 schools remain in place.
Yes, excuse me, Chris, one second. Just so we can give the general public, anybody who's watching, um, the information prior to this. Um, School committee, building committee, town council approved $125 million bond.
That's correct.
And that was for 3 elementary schools on the 3 sites that were identified. When the bids went out and they came back, the cost was higher. The square footage per square foot was higher. And I think that's where you're coming in now to show the options relative to the bid that came in around $149 million. When we were anticipating an amount not to exceed $125 million.
Correct.
So I think just to explain to the general public that's watching this or anybody that's here at the present time, what you're presenting now is options relative to the bid of $149 million and what the school committee's options would be.
So that is correct. Let me take a step back and clarify that better. Thank you, Dr. Pilato. So our role as the owner's project manager is to bring on a construction manager, and that construction manager will then go to the street. They will take the schematic design program. They will go get real-time numbers from contractors out in the field. They will ask them what it really costs to do the work, and they will come back to us and we will say, okay, where are we with the budget? What budget constraints do we have? And in a situation like this, how do we identify a path forward for the district? So that's the impetus of where we are today, was that we went out, we took our original plan, we designed it up to a schematic design phase, we brought on our construction manager. That construction manager went out and got real-time pricing from actual subcontractors, the people that would be performing this work, and they came back with a number of approximately $950 a square foot to build 3 very small schools on 3 sites.
Chris, just one point of clarification too for the public. So the project manager is obviously you and your company, Left Field, and Matt McBurney is here.
Yes.
The architect is Studio Jade, and Tracy is here.
Yep.
The construction manager for the current project, which includes the admin building and the remodeling of the auditorium and the work down at the library, Shawmut is the company that won that bid. And the construction company, they went out to bid again for potentially a second construction company for the 3 schools. And who won that bid?
So Dimeo won that.
Okay,
Dimeo is with us today. Dimeo has a great deal of experience building schools in Rhode Island. They are immensely qualified to do this work, and they've been a great partner so far.
So Dimeo is the construction manager for the 3 elementary schools.
Currently in the pre-construction phase of this project, yes, Dimeo is our construction.
Just wanted to make sure everybody was clear who the players were.
Sure. So again, that's where we are today, is that we took a look at a budget that was developed approximately a year and a half, 2 years ago when we went out to bond originally, or when the town went out to bond originally for this work. We took a look at where market conditions have moved the needle, and with that, with Dimeo's help, we were able to establish new numbers for this project. And then we come back to you today, or to school building committee, with 3 options to move the project forward, and they have advanced this next option, which would be option 3. But having said that, I'd like to finish with the disadvantages of option 2. Again, this would be to reduce program. So you would see the reduction of program areas, including specialized spaces. As an example, elimination of gymnasiums, reduction in the size of classrooms. These schools will no longer be equitable with Olney and McGuire. And just to give you guys an idea of how much the construction market has changed, when Olney and McGuire were built, the cost to build them was approximately $550 a square foot. That is pre-COVID. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of where numbers are going. And I'd be happy to dive into any of the numbers. I have Matt with me. Matt is a former construction manager himself in a previous life. I have Matt with me to dive into the numbers as well, if you'd like that. And of course, Dimeo is here as well to help talk about any of the increase in construction pricing when we get to the open discussion portion of the program. So again, these schools would not be equitable with Olney and McGuire. There would be approximately a 3-month schedule delay while we went back out and spoke with school stakeholders about what spaces we really could cut and still offer a educational program. Site work, including community use spaces, would be very limited. And again, it would eliminate that health and safety project contingency. So you would no longer be doing any more projects at the middle school level or replacing the skylights and things like that. Option 3. Option 3 would be consolidation. We would consolidate schools to maintain equity in facilities and align with the budget. The total cost of the program would be back to $125 million. You are looking now at a cost per square foot of the consolidated school of $750 a square foot, so a $200 reduction in square foot. And you would again have a high school health and safety projects contingency of $4.7 million. So that would allow you again to put more money back into the middle schools, put more money back into the high schools. The advantages of consolidation, but it would align with current budget. There would be no additional funding required. All elementary schools would be equitable across the board. There would be a significant reduction in square foot costs due to the efficiency of the structure. And I think that's a great segue for me to discuss why $950 a square foot, why we're getting that number. The reason that cost is so high is, yes, while we have seen a general increase across the board in all construction trades and materials pricing, building 3 schools on 3 very small schools, each one only approximately 27,000 square feet, on 3 very small sites is an incredibly inefficient way to build a large program. You are now paying for supervision at 3 sites. You are paying for 3 sets of larger foundations. You're paying for site work at 3 sites. The costs multiply exponentially when you're building such small schools on 3 sites. When you build bigger, you can use the same foundation but build up. It reduces your costs. It's just a very much more efficient way to build. And that's why you see in a lot of districts why they're choosing to build up as opposed to build out. It really reduces the costs. Also, as an example, site work in North Providence is very expensive. There's a lot of ledge in North Providence. There's a lot of ledge here. Ledge would require blasting and things like that. It's very expensive to build on. So any reduction that we can find in site work saves the project a great deal of money, exponentially when compared to the actual building costs. The disadvantages of a program like this, also another advantage there would be some decrease in operational costs. I'll leave that to the superintendent to put a finer figure on it. But when you have less schools, you're paying less heating, you're paying less to maintain them, less in your electricity bills. You can realize operational savings when you consolidate schools. Disadvantages, it would eliminate a school at Centerdale, and I can go into why we've chosen Centerdale later on in the discussion if that's a conversation that we'd like to have. There will be a traffic increase on site, but we have already developed preliminary ways of how to mitigate that traffic, and there would be a shift in public expectations. The bond language was written to give us flexibility if we did need to go forward with a program like this that did include consolidation, but I know a lot of the public was expecting 3 schools, and this is a substantial shift. I'm not going to downplay that this isn't a substantial shift. It certainly is. This is very difficult to see. You guys do have a handout, but when we do look, I would like you just to take a quick look and compare Greystone to Wayland. You see the cost to build Wayland is still at $965 a square foot there in the top right, where the box that is highlighted, you're looking at a cost of $765.21 right now for the Greystone School because it is a much more efficient building. And of course, we're looking at the high school. The other box that's highlighted is that health and safety projects contingency. I would also like to say that these are real numbers. These aren't numbers that have been developed by a third-party cost estimator. They're not numbers that have been developed by somebody outside the project. These numbers have been developed in conjunction with Demio by them going after their trade subcontractors. This is a much more firm budget than any of the previous estimates that we were dealing with when people were a little bit separated from the project. So we're very confident in these numbers. Not only do we have these numbers also include escalation factors in case we do need to prepare for further escalation, but they also include about $7 million in owner's contingency. At the end of the project, any money that is not spent on these would go back to that health and safety projects contingency, allowing you guys to do more work at the middle school level. I'd also just like to point out that in terms of the distance between Centerdale and Greystone, as the crow flies, it is only 0.39 miles. A walking distance is 4.1 miles from the 2 schools. I'd like to bring up Studio Jade right now to do a little walkthrough of what the schematic design plans are if we do choose to consolidate, which would be, again, a single-story school at Wayland and a 2-story school over at Greystone.
Thank you. My name is Tracy Donnelly from Studio Jade Architects. This is a concept site plan for the Wayland Elementary School. It is on obviously the existing site that the school is on now. The building, the new building, which is shown in the red or pinkish color, is just outside of the footprint of the existing building. So that would allow the students to remain in the existing building while construction could occur. And then after that, the existing building would be demolished and the site work and play areas would then be constructed. This is an alternate site plan. We are looking at kind of flip-flopping the parking lot and the play areas so that the students would come out of the main entrance and be able to access the play areas, the playground, the field area, and then there would be a concrete walk to get to the parking, which would then be closer to Mineral Spring Avenue. So those are two options that we're looking at for the site right now. The bus traffic would be separated from parent drop-off. It would be right where Chris is showing now, allowing about approximately 4 or 5 buses to pull off of the main road, allow the students to egress and ingress onto the bus directly onto the sidewalk. The parking lot would also be able to be used as a snorkel lane so that parents could then drop off. Students would have direct access to a sidewalk and then could safely enter the building. So the parent drop off, administration parking, visitor parking, and bus traffic are all separated. Chris, did you have something to add? This is a colored floor plan of Wayland Elementary School. The yellow boxes are the typical learning studios. The green box is the combination gym music room up where Chris is pointing. The aqua blue, I guess we'll call it, to that is the dining commons and the kitchen. So we do have separate dining areas and gym and music areas in these proposed plans. The darker blue is administration. Where the red dot is the main entrance. Of course, there would be a security entrance. So you come in to a secure vestibule. There would be a transaction window, and then you would then get buzzed into the waiting area of administration or into the remainder of the school. The pink color is the nurses area. Oh, in that area, the orange is the media center / art / Da Vinci room. And then in between each of the 2 classrooms is a kind of a pull-out space or a breakout space that is accessed between every single classroom. The lower levels, the kindergarten, has a toilet room in each room. It is a 1-story building that is able to have egress in multiple locations, but ingress only through the controlled entry point. And then, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you just go through again the entrance? This is the green is the cafeteria.
Nope, the green is the gym / music room.
Where's the music room?
It's shared with the gym space.
So
it's a multi-function space.
My concern would be the noise in the gymnasium with the music classroom. So I don't know if are we soundproofing that room so that
it would have soundproofing, but it would either be used as the gymnasium or as the music room. They would not occur at the same time.
See, that to me, it wouldn't be functional as an elementary principal, because you when you're creating your specialists, what we want to do is design the schedule so that we can do multiple specialists at the same time. So now if I have my music teacher and I can't plan for them in music, I'm either doing back in the old-fashioned days, I'm having my music teacher travel, or I have to use the gym. For me, that doesn't make sense, so it's not functional.
So when we went through the programming, and we can certainly revisit this, it was going to be scheduled on alternate days. So one day would be a movement/gym day, another day would be a music day.
And again, as a principal, that you're going to schedule a building, it's not, I'm just giving my opinion, it's not an efficient way to schedule a building. You need to be able to have, especially if I have, let's say this is a building, how many tracks, Joe, 2 or 3? So I have 2 tracks. I want to partner up my 2 grade 2 teachers and my grade 1 teachers. I want one to go to music, one to go to art, one to go to library, one to go to gym. I can't do that because so now I can't have vertical planning time. I just think we have to think about when we schedule the building, what's function. And I know, Louise, you've done this too in elementary. It runs very differently. And with the library, not as a big deal because you're talking about a different kind of function.
I just have one quick. The other 2 elementary schools that were built prior, do they utilize that? No.
No, it's separate.
I think the thinking was currently, if I could interject just one thing, is that currently it's shared. So they're shared positions. They're not there every day. So music is there. I know what you're saying. But I think that's why when they looked at this as principals, they did discuss that. But I think that was the thinking, is that currently it doesn't have to be an issue because they're shared positions.
So if there's ever an opportunity, but what I'm saying is that this design is going to impact scheduling from now to 100 years from now if the schedule has to change. So that means we can't redesign the building because of the schedule. Now we're always trapped in this design.
There's still 2 more levels of design that we need to go through before this project is put out to bid for the subcontractors and things like that. This is our first pass at this mission design in the school, so we can absolutely look into it. But I don't want us to get too hung up on individual spaces or where they are in the building or anything like that. Because that all can change as we move forward through our design and do our second line vision with teachers and staff and things.
Are the classrooms connected to each other so that the egress through each other?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, no, I prefer them not to be based on the lockdown. That means every teacher has to make sure their door is locked because now
Correct.
you have an entryway through. Okay.
Yes.
You're going to see some renderings later. Don't worry about the colors yet.
Yes, and I understand the point that was being made, and we'll certainly revisit that. There were 3 separate visioning sessions that were done with the ed planner, but we'll bring that scheduling up again, and we can report back at the next meeting. And as Chris mentioned, this is the concept rendering for Wayland Elementary School. It's a 1-story building where we are showing the music room and the dining commons now does allow direct access from both of those areas out to the exterior, where there could be a courtyard or a outdoor learning commons as well, shared off of those 2 elements. This is the concept site plan for Greystone Elementary School. Again, the same concepts were utilized on all the buildings so that we have separation of bus traffic, parent drop-off, visitor, and staff parking. The red dot shown on the screen is the main entrance. Again, similar security entrance where you come into a secure vestibule. There'll be a transaction window, and then you get buzzed again directly into the administration waiting area or into the remainder of the school.
This over here is the bus entrance.
Yes.
What do the kids filter into the building? How do they enter?
There's back entrances that they could go into through each wing.
That you walk directly down the hallway? So I just want, again,
Yes.
in the wintertime, slippery floors, you got to walk them and then I would just ask the team to double check the number of bus students compared to the number of students dropped off, because that's all going to get tracked through the building. That's going to be a cleaning issue. It's also a liability with slipping because they don't enter directly into the gymnasium or the cafeteria, which is where you want, obviously, the majority of the kids to enter. We did that planning with McGuire and Stephen Only because of concerns like that the principals had.
Sure, we can look at that at the enlarged plan as well. So the orange is the media center. In the center is the turquoise is the dining commons. So students could come up either of those wings, or there are doors that you could go directly into those areas as well. I understand for a separate drop off and pickup. The lime green is the gymnasium or the music movement room. The red dot is the secure entrance. The darker yellow or the gold are the learning communities, again with a shared breakout space in between each two learning community.
Has to be the bottom.
Pre-K is on the bottom. There's toilet rooms in each room.
How many pre-Ks is this for?
This one has 3, I believe.
3 pre-Ks?
Sorry, 5. 5 pre-Ks.
And then how many Ks? 3?
3 tracked is what we're showing now in the 5 pre-Ks.
Looking at a 3-track with flexible classrooms or a 4-track. So those are 2 options that we develop further. But right now we're looking at speaking with Superintendent Go and looking at your most recent enrollment numbers and enrollment numbers. We're going back and forth. So do we want a 4-track school and some of those classrooms may not be occupied, or do we want a 3-track school with bubble classrooms so you can adjust to bubbles in the population? It's also a matter of funding. RIDE bases their funding on their enrollment numbers. So we just need to make sure that RIDE is law to pay for spaces that don't immediately have students.
So this would be the plan if you're consolidating Centerdale?
There's a second floor as well.
So with, if we're just looking at the Greystone and the Centerdale enrollment, what is it, about 560 total?
530.
And you said pre-K was coming in, their own entrance on this side. Where was the kindergarten?
Kindergarten is up further from the pre-K, so towards the blue. That whole wing is pre-K and kindergarten,
Pre-K.
that lower level.
And then in the gymnasium, those 3 spaces are, again, what are they?
The lime green space is the movement gymnasium music room, and there's an office/storage room.
And where was the cafeteria? My apologies.
The cafeteria, yep, right where Chris is pointing. The aqua is the cafeteria. Dining commons is open to the corridor, and the kitchen is on the other side, just across from it.
And where are the restrooms in relation to the cafeteria and the gym?
It's in the gray, yep, both above and below the cafeteria.
Small, yeah. And they're planning for how many, approximately how many stalls? How many stalls with 560 kids as a principal of a 560 building? 2 or 3 or 4 isn't enough. 8.
I think there's 10 per block.
Perfect. Okay, good.
Yes.
So this has been designed for public code, which takes into account.
Yeah, it's actually above the plumbing code because the plumbing code is quite low. So we do have way more plumbing fixtures than are required. And then this is the proposed second story for Greystone Elementary School. The yellow being your learning communities. The lighter yellow is your circulation, the corridor, and a stair at each end. The white spaces are the ones that aren't colored, are your 2-story spaces, which are your gym, your dining commons, and your media center. And there's some administration offices up on the second floor as well. That is the blue.
What's also important to notice that's done purposely. You're not allowed for to move students up, but the younger students up. So we have to be as efficient as possible with the lower floors to make sure that everybody has access to the schools. The only workaround really is getting kids upstairs to build them their own separate staircase, and that's we don't want to be really big upstairs. So the architect is very thoughtful in that.
And here's a concept rendering of Greystone Elementary School. This does show the 2-story, so you can see the area behind the flag is the 2-story area behind the main entry. And then some of the first floor with the pre-K and K is a 1-story building. Yes.
Can you just show me again? I see where the front is, where those cars are. Is that where the buses are gonna be dropping off in the front?
No, in the back. Right where Chris is pointing in the back of the building is a separate bus drop-off. In the front would be the parent drop-off and visitor and administration parking.
Okay.
Joe, do we know how many students, do you have an idea of the bus numbers versus the drop-offs? Because my wonder is, even I'm thinking, okay, open house, parent-teacher conferences, things like that, the number of spaces built in the neighborhood, do you know how many spaces in the visitor lot?
We could go. Yeah, we could go back and take a look at that. This should be it. Yeah.
The nice thing about this plan is that you've got really so much space. So if you did have one of those events, you can the goal with this plan is to get cars off the individual streets on site, but doing so in a safe way within that messing with, how students get into the building. So the bus is pretty self-explanatory, but you can see here the parent drop-off is separate from the teacher. So you're not going to have people parking while they're trying to drop off the or sort of kids standing there idling.
Yeah, before we get into questions and open discussion, just so I can summarize for the general public and correct me if I miss anything. The original support was for 3 elementary schools at a cost of $125 million with some upgrades at the high school, the administration building, and the middle school. When the project went out, the bids came back, project costs went to approximately $149 million. So the left field construction manager looked at various options because the building committee was pretty clear in not going back out to the general public to ask for additional bond money. So we had $125 million to work with. And the construction people came up with 3 options, which were presented to you this evening. Just so the general public knows that the $125 million consolidates Greystone and Centerdale to be located at Greystone. Included in the $125 million, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that would include upgrades to the middle school.
$4.7 million of current projects for the middle school and
the high school.
The high school administration
and the administration
and the
building.
auditorium are included within that 100.
So just so the general public understands that the $125 million also includes upgrades to the middle schools, the administration building, and upgrades to the high school. The building committee obviously has reviewed these options. They were obviously in support of option 3 to stay within the $125 million. Town council had a meeting last evening, also taking into consideration the $125 million maximum, that they provided us with a letter of support advocating for also option number 3. I think at this point, the question remains for the proper use of the $125 million. Everybody may not agree with it, but the bottom line is that we're going to put kids in new buildings, and we cannot keep putting money into old buildings. I think in the very beginning, everybody was in support of 3 elementary schools. All 3 bodies of government were in support of that. But obviously now with the fiscal constraints, we had to devise a plan, or the project manager had to devise a plan to stay within $125 million that the taxpayers approved. Even though we may not be in total support of it, again, it's going to put kids in a new building. Both Greystone and Sunnydale and Wayland are old buildings. We put money into those buildings every year to keep the infrastructure strong and moving. But we're at a point now in the town where we just can't keep putting money into those buildings. It may not be the perfect solution, but it is the best solution at this point in time to meet the requirement of what the taxpayers approved and to put students and staff in new buildings for a long period of time. So if I missed something in terms of how the $125 million will be spent, I'll stand corrected. If you can add to that.
So the only thing that I would add, Dr. Pilata, is that we should not think as a committee, and I would be doing you a disservice to say that waiting to do this project to another time would be a more fiscally promising time to do this project. Construction prices will never go to where they were pre-COVID. You will never again be able to build an elementary school for $570 a square foot like you did with Olney and McGuire. We are seeing construction prices leveling. We're seeing much more stability and much more regularity in the way that prices are rising with traditional inflation. But we are never going to enter into a time again where this project is going to be cheaper to do. And I would also just like to add, in terms of not just cheaper to do, but for the cost of the project, but the bonuses and the reimbursement rates that are available to you right now are an entitlement put out for the state of Rhode Island. Entitlements do not last forever. Entitlements generally do not get renewed, and we've been very lucky over the past few years that the legislature has seen fit to push out the bonus points to allow more districts to get these projects under our belt. I know that some people might say, well, if prices are so high right now, why don't we wait a little bit longer? I would advise strongly against that because, again, prices will never return to where they were pre-COVID, and entitlements such as the one that we're currently in do not last forever.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other thing I should add to that is that meeting all the requirements of the Department of Education, the town will receive approximately 80% reimbursement on the $125 million project. Correct?
Correct.
We meet those guidelines. I think the taxpayers really need to know that we're getting new buildings and getting an 80% reimbursement on the $125 million expenditure. I think that's a critical piece of information that the general public should know. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? No, I just want to...
Questions?
No, can I...
Comment?
Yes. I just want to reiterate what the chairman just said, that there was no one on that building committee that wasn't fully in support of building 3 elementary schools. This was presented to us, this change in this price increase, I believe about 2 weeks ago. And we did have a couple of people come to the meeting last week with some questions, a couple of people from the public. And one was, they were concerned about Wayland. They got the impression, all right, now we're going to build a second level school at Sunnydale. What happens if that runs over? Is anything going to be jeopardized with Wayland? And we assured them that these schools are going to be built simultaneously with no swing space. Last time they had to take children and bring them out of town while these schools were being built. So I just want to let everybody know these schools are going to be built at the same time. And Wayland's not going to be made to a smaller school. This isn't what everybody wanted, but this was the best option that we had. So, you know, I don't know. You need a motion or?
No, there might be some more
questions
discussion.
and comments at the present time. Mr. De Silva?
I think it's smart actually to put Centerdale and Greystone together. Going forward, when you have to pay for the operation of these buildings, it's one less. The whole site gets turned over to the town. There's another opportunity. And like you said, when you have a bigger school, I taught at Garden City, and they were going to renovate Garden City, and we were told, knock it down. It's less money, and that's what they did. So I'm in favor of this whole project the way it is right now.
Yeah, Mrs. Picard?
I have a question about the estimate analysis for the consolidation budget. So there is still a column for Centerdale. Is that because those are the costs that have already been expended, or is that something different?
So we wanted to show those costs because they're big right now. However, if you guys do approve a plan to consolidate, a lot of those costs will be shifted over into Greystone. As an example, your house materials expenses will most likely get shifted over because materials on the project. They are committed under contract right now, but we would have to, once we would get approval from this group to consolidate, we would then reallocate this money.
Okay, so just to be clear for the public, this column would be, all this money would be moved to the other schools based on the vote for tonight. Thank you for that clarification.
Chris, and you also mentioned at the last building committee meeting that this third option would include work done through this bond on the Centerdale site in terms of creating potential fields.
Yes, we would defer to the town.
I don't know if your microphone's on. I don't. There it is.
Okay, so we would defer to the town on that. There would be money under the current budget to make sure that the fields stay in good shape there, but we think that it's probably most prudent for the town and the school committee to come up with a plan for that site, and then we can look at how we would invest money across the project to make sure that those sites remain open.
So based on the parents that contacted me, because this District 1, that's my district, so Greystone and Centerdale, the questions that they asked was something that you answered was about the mitigation of the parking. That's a large concern about the fact that when they have large events, will they be able to handle it? And families that don't access the school, how much congestion will roll over to the neighborhood? And it's been an ongoing. So my suggestion to them was that typically in the planning process or on the building committee that they would allocate space for the visitors as well as the teachers, and then the drop-offs. So that was, and I mean, obviously, we consolidated down Maryville, and that was not easy for our families as well. It's a small town, and there's a lot of history. So I do think that the town council is looking at other options for the building for like recreation, which is also something that our families want. So I think if the town council can consider more of that, I do think it'll be more palpable for the residents in District 1.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. We did discuss this at the building committee level, and so the field that would be restored at the Greystone site would be smaller than the current site, and there would be more asphalt laid down for parking and removing buses and automobiles and large events off of the streets. And then the Centerdale site, which would no longer have a school on it, in collaboration with the town, would be the recreation open space.
That's a great site. You have a ton of options. It's centrally located. I will defer to, there's probably going to be a committee or something to discuss that. But yes, as part of our project, the fields are included as part of it.
Just a couple things I do want to get on the record that were mentioned at the last building committee meeting. A couple of the questions that have come up. Okay, obviously, I'm the superintendent, the administration building. So questions have come up of, okay, well, we could have scrapped the administration building and not done that, and that would have saved money. What people don't realize is the project is getting a 5% bonus of $6.25 million because the current administration building is being closed and a new one is being built attached to the high school. So that would be $6.25 million out of the reimbursement rate. The other piece is why was the administration building done first? And your answer to that was obviously the planning of 3 elementary schools takes a lot of input, a lot of public forums, a lot of intricate design. That was a much smaller project. So that was part of it. And
So
then,
actually, so it's a great question. Like you said, it was asking the school building committee. There is a website for this project, northprovidenceschoolprojects.com.
NorthProvidenceSchoolProjects.com. All right, we'll get that information out to the families.
And one of the questions that we have a frequently asked questions page, and one of the questions that I did add on based on feedback at the school building committee from community members is, why did we decide to do the high school projects first? And there are two main reasons for that: funding, as you said, superintendent, which is that also we have to be reminded that the auditorium project is being funded through a facilities equity initiative grant through the Rhode Island Department of Education. That grant sunsets. Also, all work must be completed on that part of the project by June 30th. And also, to consolidate, to save the town money, we combined the addition and that project together. Again, this is kind of the same reasons that we're seeing why consolidating the elementary schools is much cheaper.
So because the work in the auditorium had to begin, because it was being funded by a grant that expires and must be completed by the end of the school year, the administration building project was begun so that simultaneously those projects could occur, thus saving the town money.
Under one mobilization saves the town
One
a ton of
mobilization,
money.
heavy equipment, and one construction site at one time.
And also, we need to be realists about this. The amount of money that you would have saved by not doing the administration building, like you said, it would jeopardize your bonus points, but also it's not going to get you to a place where you can still build 3 elementary schools on 3 sites.
Right.
Chris, can you give the general public timeline, start of the project, completion of the project?
Oh,
So
sure.
the general public knows.
So we have Dimeo here, and perhaps Dimeo would like to also comment after me. But we're looking at getting under construction next April, I believe. Correct? Yeah, next spring. Yeah, next spring will be under construction. It'll take about 18 months for school construction. So we're looking at. I'm pretty bad at math in my head. I should have my son here to help me. But I think we're looking at opening day 2026. Is that correct, Costa?
Is that right?
Yeah, 2026 school year. We should be open and ready.
So then this way, so Louise, Joe, any student coming in to Centerdale would be told at the kindergarten registration for that incoming through that last class that they'll be moved. All those kids coming up now, right? Yeah. Okay.
So, Chris, so the quick points. You had mentioned. Oh, the other question that had come up. I had a resident ask me this. Rather than close Centerdale, the residents would say, well, why aren't we looking at then renovating Centerdale? So the other piece of that, which was mentioned at the building committee meeting the other day, is RIDE has an index based on the age of the building and the condition of the building. And once a school building reaches a certain level, is it the FCI score?
So yes, it's called the facilities.
Right. So
facilities condition index, and essentially it becomes if the cost to renovate the school is more than the school's value, then RIDE will not pay.
So like the old Maryville school, Centerdale has reached the point where any money put into renovations at Centerdale would not be reimbursed.
And we wouldn't recommend it at all. You don't have the adequate program space. You don't have the adequate space for it does not offer, the facility does not offer the spaces that North Providence School District wants to offer their students.
And the last question is, if you could make sure you mention this, because you said you would, why the Greystone site was chosen as opposed to the Centerdale site for the larger school?
So there are a number of reasons for this. One of the big ones is traffic. It's a very difficult site to get traffic on and off that site. As you can see with the Greystone site, we have a lot of space to work with, so we can get all those cars off the street and make it as minimally impactful to the surrounding neighborhood. That's one reason. The site in general is also very expensive to build on. Centerdale's site is also very expensive to build on. It did have the highest cost per square foot when we were looking at all three of the thing. I mean, we're in construction, myself and Matt, and Jimmy and Constant. We can just take a look at a site and tell you, but we just want you to know that there was a good deal of due diligence that went in on the front end to make sure that we're just not willy-nilly recommending that Greystone. And if you like, I think that's a great question. I can put on the website, and I'll have we can absolutely explain our thought process and our decision-making process about why we were recommending a 2-story school at Greystone as opposed to Centerdale.
Mr. Chairman, just so, and this was asked at the building committee meeting also, just so anybody that lives in the Greystone area understands, there will be a traffic impact study done. Right. So they might come up with a different way. It might be easier for the traffic in and out of that area to the school. So it's not just everybody's going to come in one street. There will be a traffic study done prior to this, going on. So,
Mr. Andriozzi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So presently at this point in time, obviously the only step forward is the consolidation of the schools. My problem and my concern is this. 15 months ago, we had Studio Jade come in here and tell us that $100 million was an adequate amount of money to build the 3 schools. I did not believe it at the time. I made a suggestion that we go out for more. We ended up going out for 25% more. As it turns out, Studio Jade was off by 50%, 150 million versus 100 million. My concern now is we're talking about building in April. How do we know that 125 million is going to be enough to handle what we're thinking of doing with the consolidation? How are we sure that you've told us that it's increased exponentially in the last 15 months? What's going to happen in the next 4 months, 5 months, 6 months?
So happy to address that. It's a legitimate question. It's a good question. So what we have done with the current budget, the budget that you're seeing before you today, is we have built in escalation to make sure that we are covering any additional escalation further in the project. We built in ample health and safety, ample contingencies into the project just in case some things go out of whack. But I think the main difference between 15 months ago and now is that we are working with real numbers. So 15 months ago, you were working with a third-party cost estimator. You were working with an architect. Today, you are working with the construction manager who's going to be responsible for building that work. And because of the way this project is bid, this is construction manager at risk as opposed to design, bid, build, or a general contractor, meaning that Costa and his team at Dimia will own these numbers. And the risk is on them to build it within this budget. The risk is not on the town to build it within that budget.
So under no circumstances will there be any shortcuts taken in the building of these schools to fit into the $125 million 6 months from now?
That's a difficult question to answer, but I can tell you that we've done absolutely everything that we can to make sure it doesn't happen by preparing for worst case scenarios, by including things like escalation, by going out to subcontractors.
So may I ask, how much are you escalating? What's the percentage that you're escalating?
Matt McBurney with Left Field. So we're escalating at 6%.
6%. So in 15 months, we were off by 50%. We're looking at another, you just said you want to break ground in April, right? So we're going to break ground in April. How many months away is that?
Well, to address the 50% versus 6%, that's 6% on the whole that already have the contingencies baked into the numbers.
Understood. My concern is 8 months from now, is 6% enough to cover? I'm concerned with, we're talking about rooms, Mrs. Picard has questions about specific rooms, possibly changing things, so forth and so on. It may reach the point 8 months from now where we can't even build that room because we don't have enough money to do it. In other words, I'm concerned about shortcuts that are going to be taken to fit into the $125 million budget. That's what I'm concerned about, considering we've already obviously blew past $100 million from 15 months ago. It's 6:55 by the way.
Matt, what is the contingency fund in the third option? How much is that?
Contingency, I believe, is
4.7 million.
So 4.7 plus 7, and then we also have to remember
4.7
plus 7.
plus 7. That's just
So what's the total?
11.7 million.
just owner's contingency.
That's the contingency
Those
fund.
numbers contain Dimio has a design and pricing excuse me. The numbers that you have before you also include Dimio's 10% design pricing contingency. So those numbers also include a 10% contingency from Dimio, as well as a construction contingency of 8%. 8% of. So there are layers being built into Safeguard that were not here 15 years ago. And that's, I think, the main difference that we're trying to enumerate is that what we've done with the current budget is we've tried to take a look at possible worst case scenarios coming down the line and plan for those contingencies down the line. Now, we hope we never have to use that money and it would go right back to the health and safety contingency. But the level of confidence we have with our numbers, having a construction manager on board, as well as having these built-in contingencies at the construction level, as well as at the owner's level, make us feel that 125 million is the sure bet to get everything that you guys are asking for with these two schools.
So could you answer to the public who might be watching what the contingency number is that may not be used in the high school?
There's
11.7.
$11.7 million may not, there's potential that $11.7 million may not be used in the high school. Is that correct in saying that?
Yeah, not the high school. So,
In health and safety.
so the current health and safety with this plan is $4.7 million. You also have an owner's contingency just at the elementary school level of $7 million. In addition to those two contingencies, there is a 10% design and pricing contingency bids being carried by the contractor within those cost per square foot numbers. So that's within those cost per square foot numbers,
Yep.
as well as a 7% construction contingency that's also being carried within those cost per square foot numbers. Now, having said that, there's also, we don't want to use this money right now, but we also are under budget right now with the current high school project.
Correct.
And if that project keeps trending the way it is, we could be looking at putting back close to $1 million back into the elementary school project as well.
Correct.
I would like to add one point too. The design documents are at 70% SD, so they're very early. So in addition to the contingencies that you see on the budget spreadsheet, there are contingencies within the cost per square foot numbers for specific trades, because not everything is on the design drawings yet. But Dimeo and their estimating team, as well as the third-party estimator, know what need to go into the building. If you show an outlet on the wall, you need wire to get power there.
Sure.
The numbers per square foot that are informing this budget number have additional contingencies into them. So to your original question on shortfalls or shortcuts, those are being considered already and protected against.
Correct. I understand that. I just want to be sure that I understand, as well as the public and everyone else here understands, that there's potential that this square box on page, there, it's not marked, it says estimate and analysis, consolidation budget. It's down on the bottom. It says 4.6. It says $4,693,953 has a potential to not be there for high school projects contingency. Am I correct in saying that?
I would say it is not likely that it would have to be used based on how the budgets have been built for
At this point, but we don't know the future 8 months from now. Obviously, we didn't know the future 15 months ago.
Correct.
So there's a potential that some of that could be eroded.
Well, it is available funding within the budget, so yes, there is a potential for that.
Okay.
But they have, every measure has been taken to inform the budget for the consolidated school and Wayland to not need to touch that contingency.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And hopefully it all goes well from this point forward. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns?
Quick
Mr.
question.
Silva?
How are we on our current project in terms of cost overruns or anything like that?
For the high school administration and
Correct.
the auditorium,
Yes.
we're doing very well. We are under our current budget. I believe it is close to $2 million.
What was the last thing you said?
Close to $2 million.
Oh, excellent. Under budget.
Yes.
And that does include some scope outs that we put back into the sorry, I keep forgetting. It doesn't allow me to speak with my hands, so I don't like using it.
Can't help yourself.
I can't. That also includes some additional scope ads that we've included for the student population, including making sure that we have ADA accessible lifts, making sure that we have that the stairs, that you don't have any interrupted progress to getting kids down to watch the football games and the soccer games and things like that. We've added things in, and the project is going extremely well, and we're looking for to be open up that
The football
auditorium.
was part of the Stephen Only and McGuire bond, correct? There was extra money that was used for that.
Oh, so the state, the football field, I should say, is
That's
not
right,
part of it, but the stairs and what we're doing to make the
That's part of that.
ADA accessible, that's on us.
And so my final comment is, I'm certainly glad that Wayland is going to be intact, because the District 2 contingent already bit this bullet when Maryville was closed, and that Maryville community was split amongst two schools. So the fact that Wayland is going to be intact and on a par with Stephen Only, I think is excellent. And right now it looks like Centerdale and Greystone will be equal to Stephen Only and McGuire and Wayland. So I think that's excellent.
Any other questions or concerns by the committee?
I'm ready for a motion.
Anyone from the general public have any concerns or comments? Okay, hearing none at this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move that the North Providence School Committee submit the revised Consolidated School Construction Program schematic design submission to the Rhode Island Department of Education School Building Authority.
I'll second that.
Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Motion to